From KUNC and the NPR network, this is In the NOCO. I'm Erin O'Toole. If you listen to music at all in 2024, it's clear that female artists are a dominant force. We've got Taylor Swift, Beyonce, Billie Eilish, and the list goes on. But behind the scenes is a different story. Statistics show a fraction of people in the music industry are women, not the performing side, but the behind-the-scenes jobs like engineers and producers. Project Traction is a new nonprofit with a mission to create opportunities for women and non-binary music producers. It was founded by Jim Eno, the drummer for the band Spoon. He hopes the nonprofit can help boost the number of women in these important industry roles by providing mentorship and hands-on studio experience. I'm joined today by Briana Harris, a singer and saxophonist from Greeley, who is one of the musicians participating in Project Traction. She got to fine-tune her studio skills alongside Eno on a new track, which we'll hear in just a moment. Briana Harris, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me on the show.
I want to start with this song you produced with Project Traction. Now, it's by Barbara. They are a Denver-based all-women indie rock band. And this song is called For Good Measure, right? Let's hear some of it now, and then we'll talk about it. That's a big sound. It's hooky as all get out, too. I really like it. All right.
Yeah, it's great writing from the band, and one thing I love about all of the musicians in Barbara is they're all such great musicians. They write great hooks, great melodies, and it was a super fun track to produce with them.
Producer is one of those crucial jobs in the music business. What does a producer do?
Working as a producer can mean a lot of different roles. And I would say every producer has their own set of skills they're bringing to the table. Some are way more technical. Some are more facilitators in different ways. But generally, you are taking the big picture of the track or the album that's being recorded and just trying to facilitate the band's vision or the artist's vision, and from start to finish, making that a smooth process. So they kind of come to you with something of a vision, and your job is really to put that, onto tape, so to speak. Yeah, onto tape. Yeah. And now digital. but yes.
Yeah. Put us in your shoes a little bit during that session with Barbara. What was happening? How did you help shape the music and the sound?
Yeah, so Barbara is this band of three incredible women who are great artists, great songwriters. And we started before the session with them sharing several different demos. And then myself and Jim, who's the co-producer on this track, circled in on this song For Good Measure. So I worked a little bit with the band in pre-production on what were kind of the sounds and styles they wanted to aim for, tweaking the arrangement and orchestration of the track a little bit and making sure we had a plan for that headed into the studio. And then we spent one day tracking it down at Mighty Fine Productions in Denver. And that was great because I got to sit in the control room while the band was in the room tracking. And it's always a super fun and fulfilling time being in the studio. It was really easy working with them.
You also, of course, play in other settings, both as a solo artist and in the funk soul band, The Burrows. Was there a moment when you were on stage or maybe in a studio and said, hey, we need more women in the music business?
Only most every day of my career. And I also work in management and booking roles for the boroughs in my own projects. And it's interesting. Kind of a funny story that comes up is oftentimes when a promoter or a contact is reading my signature in an email coming from the role of the band, they'll say like, hey, thanks, Brian. So even that assumption that like, oh no, it's like a woman who's in charge of this thing and the main point person for this project. So I think being backstage on a lot of festival stages, especially interacting in more technical roles, and just I've been oftentimes the only woman in a big band, the only woman backstage, the only woman in a studio. But I'm happy to say I think that is changing.
To get to that a little more, let me ask you why this matters. I mean, why is it important that we bring more women and more non-binary people into the production side of music?
So I think the reason is the same reason that we always want to have as wide of a perspective as possible in any art form, because when we have more people at the table and more perspectives, we are able to capture a wider variety of stories that resonate with audiences. And when you're excluding potentially half of the population from telling those stories, you're not getting the whole picture. And you're honestly like not getting the best product either. So I think that is really like the main reason it's important is just to elevate the art form and make sure we are including as many voices as possible to make the most interesting and resonant art that we can. And then I also think the more women who are visible in these spaces, there are models out there that up and coming women can see and understand like, hey, I can see myself in that role because I've seen someone who's gone before me. So that representation is really, really important.
Well, before we go, I want to play a little more of For Good Measure by Barbara, the song that you co-produced. Is there a favorite moment we should listen for?
So there's this amazing build that happens towards the end when you get this sort of wall of sound of guitars and noise. And so I love this quiet moment that happens right before that. And then you're just hit with this psychedelic wall of sound at the end.
Make some sense to move ahead, just like you said, but at what cost? It's right for now. We all know how this life allows what's best for us.
Briana Harris, thank you so much for being here and talking with me today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
If you want to hear more of the music in this episode, check out the show notes. We'll include a link to the track Briana Harris produced and to some of her work as a solo artist and with her band, The Burrows. And if you want to throw your hat in the ring for Project Traction Volume 2, they're accepting applications through this Friday, June 14th, for women and non-binary producers, as well as musicians from Northern Colorado. You'll find a link to learn more and apply in the show notes. That's it for us today on In the NOCO. I'm Erin O'Toole. Thank you so much for listening.